Welcome back to the Packet Lab. Today we're going to take a look at installing Cisco Security Device Manager. Okay, so first things first, what is Cisco Security Device Manager? Which I'm going to refer to as SDM going forward because it's a lot easier to say. So here's the spiel from Cisco, and I'll let you read this on your own. I'll go through the first paragraph. SDM is a web-based device management tool for Cisco routers that can improve the productivity of network engineers, simplify router deployments, and help troubleshoot complex network and VPN connectivity issues. So that sounds awesome. Basically what it is a GUI front end for Cisco routers. It does not work with Cisco switches. You could see in the second paragraph that there are a number of platforms which SDM does support, so that's really nice. And the last paragraph there just basically tells you there's a grip of shit that you can do with this. If you have ever used the Cisco HTTP access, to one of your routers, you know that that's not a very well developed tool and it has some limitations. This is actually pretty nice. It's a sweet looking GUI and there's a ton of stuff that you can do there. And what it really comes in handy for is for advanced security features for like VPNs, firewalls, IPS, stuff like that. It is really nice for that, and that's why probably the only place you're going to run into this damn thing is in your studies for the Cisco CCNA Security exam. It's heavily featured on that exam. In the real world, I don't know that you're going to be using this because of some limitations, and we'll touch on those. For that exam, you're going to want to know this intimately because there's going to be a number of questions on the exam that refer to the SDM. And I guess I just kind of lied a little bit to you guys because we're not going to go over the limitations today. Today's lessons are going to be specifically on how to install this, get it up and running. There's another set of lessons for using SDM, and I will go over some of the reasons why you probably won't encounter this in the quote-unquote real world. There are some requirements you're going to want to be aware of when installing SDM, and they're kind of big. Basically, you need to be running Windows. You'll want to probably use Internet Explorer. I know, as painful as that sounds. And then for the trifecta of getting fucked in the ass, you have to be using Java. So you either have to or will want to use three pieces of software that I really don't care a lot for. So let's take a look at these. You will have to be running Windows, full stop. Internet Explorer or Netscape. Now I use Firefox, and I had used this previously and had run into issues with Firefox in that some of the different sections on the SDM didn't work or didn't work correct. I don't know if that's been fixed now, because at the end of this video lesson we will go through running SDM from the router itself, and I'll do that completely in Firefox, and I didn't have any problems with that. If you have problems, you may want to look at running Internet Explorer instead. And then finally Java. Java I do not like, and unfortunately Cisco seems to have an unholy alliance with Java. You're going to have Java running, and most likely you'll have to have either a plug-in or have it enabled in your browser as well. And you may run into versioning issues. Here it shows you that the Java runtime environment is 1.4.2 _05 or later. I actually had to roll back my Java to a JRE that was close to this version. It might have been a little bit later, but I had a up-to-date version running, and some of the sections in SDM were not working. I think it was like the IPS firewall or something like that. So when I rolled back my versioning, I was able to get that working. Your mileage may vary, but just to let you know, you've got three software programs that are pretty much universally despised, and then you get to have them all running together. So you can run into some bullshit that will stop you from running this, but enough said, let's move on. Before we get into installing SDM, let's go ahead and look at some preparation you have to do on your router in order for SDM to manage your router. So there's two, possibly three steps that you're going to need to implement. And if you're studying for the CCNA Security exam, go over the documentation, because I'm just putting in the steps that you absolutely need. The documentation does have some additional steps. They're not necessary, but again, for the exam, whatever Cisco says is necessary, whether it is or not. But I digress. First thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to enable the HTTP and/or HTTPS servers on your router. This is easily done. IP HTTP server is for just HTTP. For HTTPS, it would be the same command, except you're going to have IP HTTP secure server. I would recommend using HTTPS rather than HTTP because your PC is going to be communicating with your router, and it's going to be pulling a whole lot of information off of there, and it's going to have like your full running configuration, some other stuff on there. So just in the interest of security, I would use HTTPS. There's not a whole lot more configuration that you need to do, and it makes it safer than just straight HTTP, so you don't have somebody that can just sit in the middle and intercept the communications and get your running configuration here. So now the second step is that you're going to need to create a user account with a privilege level 15. You can use TACACS if you want, or some other authentication mechanism. In this case, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to create a username on the router itself, and I'm going to use packetlab with the password of packetlab, specify privilege level 15, and then in order for this to work, you're going to have to go back and configure your HTTP server to use local authentication. Again, here you could use AAA if you want to use TACACS or whatever. Again, we're going to keep it simple. But what this is doing is this is going to grant SDM the ability to make configuration changes to your router. So those are the two steps that you're going to absolutely have to do. The third step is really only going to come into play if you're going to be running SDM from the router, and I suppose I should touch on that real quickly. You can install SDM to your local PC, and when I say PC I mean Windows PC because it only runs on Windows, which is what most people are going to do. But you could also put the SDM files out on the router that you want to manage, and then you can run this purely from a browser. So you can just set your browser to the IP address of the router, and it will launch the SDM files from the router itself. Now this is slower, and we'll see this at the end of the lesson today. The only real reason I could see for doing this is if you want to try and do this without running Windows, because technically you can run it. I tried it on Ubuntu Linux. It should work. It hung on the last bit, and I ran out of interest and time in trying to get it to work, but it should technically work. So this could be a way to get around the Windows requirement, but like I said, it's slower. It's going to take up space on your router, but whatever. If that's the way you want to roll, then what you have to do is that you have to allow access to the router via your VTY lines to an account that has privilege level 15, and you can use the same one. You probably will want to use this. In the example that I'm going to use, we're going to use a local username database in that packetlab account with the privilege level 15. So basically just 2 lines. Just under your VTY lines, just say login local. So then when you log in with packetlab, you'll have level 15 access. So I think that in the Cisco documentation it shows this as a required step. It really isn't unless you're going to be running SDM from the router. So keep that in mind. But in the interest of the exam, if Cisco says it has to be done, then it has to be done. So now that your device or devices are prepped, you're going to want to go out there and grab the SDM software, and you'll have to go out to Cisco's website, and you will need a CCO login. And the latest and greatest, you can see here, where is it? It's right here. This thing hasn't been updated since December of 2007, so Cisco is moving away from this. They have other products that do replace this, but like I said, for the CCNA Security exam as it stands now, you're going to want to know the software inside and out, so we will be using this. So once you've got the software installed on your PC and you have your router prepared for SDM, you can go ahead and launch this. I'm going to run through these next whatever dozen or so slides pretty quickly because we're going to actually do this. I was going to say we're going to do it on the CLI, but really there's not going to be a whole lot of CLI, so just bear with me. So you're going to basically specify the address of the router that you want to manage, and if you have this set up for HTTPS, you'll want to select this, hit launch. Now here are some common problems involved with this is PC-based SDM. Some of them are also involved with running SDM from the router as well.